Hello everybody and welcome back to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Max Say, the host, and as Nottingham Forest draw 0-0 at the City Ground with Arsenal on a pretty entertaining 0-0 draw, I've got to say. I thought it was a bit of an entertaining one for a change on a Wednesday night under the lights in front of the TV cameras. It means Forest stay third, but Manchester City and many other teams close in on them. Forest had chances to win it. We look back to that Chris Wood chance, not once but twice, and maybe we could have won it late on at the end. We will discuss that game and look ahead to the small matter of an FA Cup fifth round tie on Monday night against Ipswich, also at the City Ground, and a chance to get to the quarter-final of the competition. Remember that time when we got to the quarter-final against Liverpool? It was under Steve Cooper. So can Forest recreate that? We will discuss what lineup Nuno should go with and much more throughout. Joined on a solo podcast today, a quiet one, mate. It seems like the Arsenal games took it out of everyone, so appreciate you joining me, Sam. Sam from the Tricky T T-shirt business. Good to see you, mate. We were both there last night, just talking actually about being a bit knackered. Night games take it out of you. What did you make of the game? And did you enjoy it last night? It just felt. I always think night games at the City Ground just feel special. It's just another reason that we never really want to leave that place, do we?
Yeah, it's a special place to watch football, especially under the lights. It was great. Yeah, it was a cagey game, wasn't it? It was. I felt stressed the whole way through. I think I looked up at the clock and it'd only been about 18 minutes into the start of the game, and I was like, God, it felt like it was nearly half time. It was back against the wall for a lot of it. And yeah, in the end, 0-0 was probably a good result, but probably a fair one, I think, in all.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. It's an interesting one, isn't it, 0-0? I think that I said before the game, actually was doing a few interviews and whatnot, and said that it would be a nervy one. It would be one of those games where kind of both sides needed a win. Arsenal needed it probably more than Forest. I mean, Liverpool are going to win the league now, but if they wanted any chance of pulling off an unbelievable upset and turn around, then they needed to get a win last night. Forest, not so much, but we still needed a win to try and almost get rid of the bad form recently. But I think a draw has steadied the ship, if you like. Obviously, we'll talk about it more. But Nuno said in his post-match press conference that the players have almost kind of just gone back to the drawing board a little bit and just kind of relaxed after last night, so it almost just evens it all out, and we build from here. Let's start with kind of the thoughts on the game, Sam. I mean, from kind of minute one, I thought Forest were quite kind of quick on it. I thought we looked quite good for the first 5 or 10. Then it was a mountain of pressure from Arsenal towards the end of the first half, but there was chances for Forest to win it. But again, I just thought the kind of quality from an Arsenal side, yes, they're not going to win the league, but they're in the top six. They're fighting really amongst kind of us and other teams. They showed their quality at times as well. And I think if it wasn't for brilliant defensive clearances, just brilliant defensively from Forest, we could have found ourselves, going a goal down at half time.
Yeah, I thought they did really well to kind of kill the atmosphere at the start of the game. I thought, yeah, like you say, City Ground under the lights is a special place and a hard place to go. And we kind of looked like we were going to fly out the traps and have a really good start. And then Arsenal just kind of killed the atmosphere a little bit by keeping the ball and keeping that possession for a prolonged period of time. So it was very good from them. That's exactly what you need to do when you come to City Ground, because as soon as you let us in with a few chances, the atmosphere gets up and it's a really difficult place to kind of get anything out of. So yeah, I thought they did really well at doing that, and yeah, it was a kind of I was a bit nervous before the game going in, thinking there's the gap's closed, hasn't it, between a lot of the teams below us, that all of a sudden it's now a lot tighter than we first looked at a few weeks ago. So I was a bit nervous about it, but I thought we defended really, really well. I thought it was proper Nuno defence. Again, it was so solid, very organised, and we really limited their chances. I mean, the two chances they had were the corner that went to the back stick, and I'm amazed that they didn't score from a corner, because they had about 11 or something throughout the game. But no, we defended them really well, and Sells made a good save, and then the other chance where Calafiori hit the post. But apart from that, I thought the chances throughout the game were fairly even. And yeah, I think, to be honest, I think we're just kind of fortunate that Arsenal didn't go out and buy a striker in January, because I think had they had a focal point up top to maybe either play into and do something with that possession, and could have been a different story. But they just lacked. They didn't look like they weren't. You're not going to win a league playing like they do. Like, they're not a clinical team like the likes of Liverpool are, and that's kind of the reason why they're in second place and Liverpool at the top. If it's a different story, if Liverpool are in that game, they'll grind you out and then they'll bag one in the last minute or something like that. So yeah, I think the game showed our defensive quality and their kind of attacking, or lack of attacking quality, really. So yeah, it kind of, the 0-0 it sums up both teams perfectly, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And almost, I think, kind of stops the rot for Forest. Not that it really was that much of a rot, we're not fighting for relegation, but I mean that in a sense of, Nuno talks about almost rediscovering ourselves, the fact that we conceded 8 goals in the past, 3 games. So it was nice to kind of just almost relax and have a bit of a clean sheet. And I thought Matt Sells made obviously some excellent saves. And you're right about the corners, Sam. We'll get onto that in a minute about set pieces. I was surprised that Forest gave away that many and almost struggled to capitalise on the set pieces and the corners that we had at times. Can remember it was the second half, Elliot Anderson had one. It was almost just a bit of a waste, and then there was one where Danilo and Anderson were offside with each other, and it was just a bit of a waste from a corner. Let's talk about the lineup, really, Sam. Forest kept it pretty much the same, and it was the 4-3-2-1 formation, 4-2-3-1 I should say. Of course, Dominguez and Anderson in midfield. There'd been talk about who would come in to possibly replace Dominguez or even Anderson. People crying out for Ryan Yates. Was it the right decision to start Dominguez? I would have started Ryan Yates yesterday, and I think when you saw him come on as well, I know Aussie Dave likes to give us a bit of grief on the podcast about it, but that was a Ryan Yates game for me last night, Sam.
Yeah, I agree. I said before the game that I thought Yates should have started, and then when I saw the lineup, I saw it was unchanged. I wasn't negative about the lineup, because I thought that Dominguez is a very good player. I just thought, like you say, it was a very Ryan Yates sort of game. You need someone that's going to absolute workhorse, and Dominguez is that sort of player as well. But Yates is that kind of player that wins your free kicks when you're pinned in, and he's aggressive, and yeah, and it showed when he came on. I think the last 2 appearances he's had off the bench, he's made a real impact. So I think he's got a serious case for Man City in a week and a half that he should be starting, because yeah, like I say, the impact he's had off the bench in those games has been good. And Dominguez, I thought, I'm a massive fan of Dominguez. I think he's a fantastic footballer. I really, really like him. I thought yesterday was one of the worst games I've seen him play. In the fact that I just felt like the game was going by him. Like there was a few chances where he gave the ball away in rash areas where we just won the ball back, and that wasn't just him. That was a lot of the team that we just couldn't seem like we could find passes together, and we were giving the ball away straight back to Arsenal. It was coming back at us in defence. So yeah, it was a poor game from Dominguez, but it was a tough game. Everyone just had to. It was a grinding out of a result, really, in that game. It wasn't a pretty performance from Forest in any sense of the word. So I don't want to stick too much blame on him, but I think I would. In my opinion, I'd go with Ryan Yates in the next game. I think from what he's shown in the last 2 sub appearances, he's been worthy of coming into that starting 11, and he's going to have a positive impact.
Yeah, it's a funny one about Ryan Yates. We talk about it so much on the podcast, and not just here, but it's a very frequent topic amongst the terraces and between Forest fans about him being a Premier League player and making that step up. But for me, I think last night's game kind of showed something a little bit different. And I just think, our mate Max that comes on the podcast, Max Scott, that everybody knows, TalkSport Max, and he put a tweet on last night, and he put Forest to better with Ryan Yates in kind of caps locks. And I do just agree with him. I think, especially against the likes of an Arsenal, where you're at home, it's a bit of a nervy game. You're needing to break the midfield up. You're needing to almost help the kind of turnover of play in transition. I think he's that type of player, and I was just disappointed that he didn't start last night. And it's a funny one you mentioned about Dominguez. Sam, and I agree. I was a big fan of him at the start of the season, and obviously still am. But he has gone off the boil recently, and you just wonder whether it's, is it the competition around him, people fighting for places? Is it the pressure? Is it because he's not really had a full run of games? Kind of, what do you think? What would you put it down to, really?
I'm not sure, really. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. He's one of those players that he's not a glamorous player. He's not a Morgan Gibbs White where you praise Morgan Gibbs White and you base what your opinion on Morgan Gibbs White based on his creativity and his output and the magical moments he has in games. Whereas Dominguez is the opposite of that. He's the workhorse. He's the does all the ratty stuff in midfield where he'll press people and win the ball back. And I think when we're playing a team like Arsenal, when they're going to keep the ball, they've got fantastic footballers like the likes of Martin Odegaard in midfield, who I was so relieved when he went off because he was just looked a threat all night. And Declan Rice in midfield, you're gonna get passed around all game in midfield. So it can't those sort of games almost he goes missing because he's got no hope of pressing those sort of players. The games like the lower teams where they're going to make mistakes and you're going to nick the ball back in midfield. Dominguez is perfect because he'll rat away in there and he'll win balls back and that's when we break and we get on the break against teams and unleash the wingers. So against teams like Arsenal where they just don't give the ball away in midfield, the game's just going to pass you by. And if you've not got that kind of when you get on the ball finally and you kind of panic or you're not looking for the right pass or not making the right decisions, you're going to look like you're going to have a bad game. So that's where I think he kind of went a little bit wrong for him yesterday. And I think maybe that's why in these sort of games, it's Ryan Yates all over. I think for me, the Ryan Yates perfect game is a big team at home. It's like get under their skin, get in their face, and it's made for Ryan Yates. It's so made for him. So I really hope that he does come in against Man City, and I think that'll be a positive change, and I think he's deserved it with his performances off the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. Just staying on that and talk about Ryan Yates and homegrown players, Sam, and you look at kind of the way that even we feel like some of the players in the side at the minute almost are one of our own, and I mean that in the sense of Morgan Gibbs White and maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi and even Chris Wood at the minute. You feel like they get what it means to Forest fans and to the football club, and you wonder whether that stands us in good stead going into these last, 10, 11 games, that it's going to be hard. It's going to be, Roy Keane was talking about it, this is the time where it makes or breaks sides in terms of competing for the European places and Champions League spots. So you just wonder whether almost that's a massive advantage to Forest. And you look at an Arsenal, you look at a Chelsea, you look at a City that are all a bit disjointed at the minute, whereas the one thing that Forest have got on their side is no one expects us to be here. It is really a free hit. Yes, it would be disappointing not to maybe finish in some kind of European places at the end of the season, but it stands you in good stead almost having that kind of squad atmosphere around. And you look at the likes of Arsenal and you think they probably haven't got what we've got. We've got that special feeling, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of just want them to believe that they can do it. I think all the way through this season, I mean, no, there's no doubt about that we've been punching well above our weight in terms of the kind of the quality that we've got in our squad compared to the other teams in the league. And for what we're doing, we are punching well above our weight. And for the entire season, we've been just rolling with it and playing with freedom. And I just hope that we don't kind of go into our shells a little bit and kind of get nervous around playing these sort of teams. Like it felt for a large period of the games, it felt like we were nervous yesterday about conceding. And I mean, I've not seen so many long balls from us since back in the League One days. It was a lot of like long ball, hoof ball forward, and it was just coming straight back at us. And I haven't seen that this season. I've seen us play with confidence, play with freedom, and I hope that the kind of the added pressure of coming towards the business end of the season doesn't impact our style and our kind of freedom in terms we play, because we played some fantastic football this season, and we played with real confidence and freedom. And now that it is like, oh, there's something on the line, there's something to lose here. I just hope that it doesn't affect the players in a negative way. I'm sure it won't. I'm sure because, like I say, they're such a together bunch, and they'll be going into that Man City game thinking these are for the taking. We can absolutely beat these, and we deserve to be in this top four. Because they've been fantastic all season. So yeah, just hope that added pressure of having something to lose now is not kind of playing a part in any of their minds. And obviously Nuno will be working on that and making sure that they're all in the right mind frame to go into these big games.
Mm. And I suppose, Sam, is it funny that we kind of Forest fans came out last night thinking, not in fact, actually being a little bit disappointed that we could have won that. We had chances to win the game and we could have beat Arsenal. It was second v third in the Premier League and we could have beat the team above us.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Walking away from the ground, just feeling a bit dejected. But I was like,
yeah,
they're second in the Premier League, and obviously we're third. But if you just take it as black and white, they're second in the Premier League, and we've held them to a close game, 0-0. It was competed by both sides, and yeah, it's odd that it feels dejected, but that's positive, isn't it? That we're all feeling that way. That we've kind of built our standards that high that we can feel that way, and it's justified. So yeah, just roll on the next one, and let's get another win going, and yeah, keep ourselves in those positions.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. No, spot on. In fact, talking about finishing in the Champions League places, the Opta people, so they do Opta graphics, Opta analyst, I should say. They've released kind of their supercomputer predicted table. They've got Forest in fourth. They've got City above us. They predict Forest to finish fourth with expected points of 64.53. 0% chance of winning the title. They've got Liverpool on a 98.83% chance of winning the title. Arsenal on 1.17. The chances of Champions League, Forest finishing in the Champions League spots, according to Opta, is 40%, and anywhere else in Europe is 21%. So the odds are looking kind of in our favour for once from the whole remember the supercomputer this season at the start. I think it's from something like the Sun predicted us to finish at the bottom or something ridiculous like that, which anyone with a footballing brain at the start of the season should have maybe thought twice about predicting Forest to finish at the bottom. But just looking at that, Sam, and talking about Europe, and I was asked the question yesterday, will Forest finish in the Champions League places? Will Forest be playing European football next year? Does last night's performance give you hope? Because for me, if you'd have asked me after the 12 minutes against Newcastle, stood in the away and watching those 12 minutes, I said, absolutely not. You can wave goodbye to Europe. If you asked me my thoughts in the last 10 minutes at Newcastle and the game last night, and I said, absolutely, Forest will get Europe because, we've shown what we're about. And I do think we have enough quality going into this kind of final push for the season.
Yeah, I think the quality's there, and I think we will. It's going to be a real tough end to the season. But if you look at our fixtures, after next week, we're playing everyone. All of our games are currently in the bottom half of the table, I believe. So we've got some we've obviously got some difficult games. We've got Tottenham away in there and Villa away, but there's some real opportunities in there. Ipswich at home and Leicester at home, I think.
Yeah,
still.
There too. We've got Ipswich and Leicester to play. Obviously Ipswich twice, one in the league, one in the cup. You've got Villa, City,
Everton, Brentford. So
winnable games. So many... difficult, but winnable games.
Absolutely, every game is difficult, but there are definitely opportunities there. So if we play like we did in that second half against Newcastle, against any of those teams, we're going to be fine. It's just which Forest turns up, isn't it? That's that first half of the Newcastle team or the second half. So yeah, that's the only thing that slightly worries me is the inconsistency in the performances and how fast it can go from extreme highs to extreme lows, like the Bournemouth to the Brighton. That's the only thing that kind of worries me a little bit, but that's just part and parcel of football. It just happens, doesn't it? All teams kind of go through those up and down spells. So yeah, I'm just hoping that we've kind of done enough in the earliest part of this season to kind of give ourselves enough of a chance to get there now.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. I agree. Spot on. In terms of, just before we move on to Ipswich in the cup, who was your man of the match last night? I thought it's got to be a player from the defence. I was tempted to pick Matt Sells. I thought he had an excellent game again, some brilliant saves. I'd probably go with I think the actual man of the match from, was it TNT or officially the Premier League? I would go with Murillo. I mean, that kind of chance that Arsenal had, albeit it was offside after, but
so
the clearance off the line. He just seems to. I mean, he shows up in every game, but he seems to show up against the big boys as well, doesn't he? Every week.
Yeah, he does. That block was phenomenal. Obviously, it was offside, but I mean, when he blocked that and then Self saved the rebound off the block, the Upper Bridgeford was celebrated like a goal. It was hilarious. And it just shows they're all like congratulating each other after that, and it's nice that they just fully are so committed to what we're doing at the moment, and they're really trying so hard to see us through to this end. I think man of the match, one of the two centre halves. I think they were both very good, and back to kind of their best really. Which it would have been a bit of an odd game for them not having an out and out striker playing with them, so they'd have probably felt a bit pulled out of shape at times. But I thought they dealt with it really well. Like I say, limited Arsenal to hardly any chances. So those two were particularly good. And I mean, I always love watching Morgan play, and I thought, even though we were back against the wall for most of it, he still had those moments where he was creative and I mean the little Cruyff turn on the half volley that he did to get Chris Wood in the second half off that long ball. I thought that's just magic. That is. There was some good performances out there, some steady 6s and 7s out of 10s that got us over the line. But the two centre halves were back to kind of that early season form where they were just immense.
Yeah, no, for sure, mate. Totally agree. Good point. I think it was a valued point. It's a shame we didn't get 3, but the fact we're talking about it being disappointing that we've not beaten one of the big boys, I think is just a symbol of really Forest's success this season. Let's talk Ipswich, Sam. Obviously, we have them in the league in not too short while, but a bit of 5th round cup tie Monday night at the City Ground, a chance to progress through to a quarter final of an FA Cup. You're one away from Wembley there. There's already some of the big boys out of it, and Forest are the highest. Yeah, Forest still are the highest team, highest ranked team in the leagues left in it. So, I mean, surely got to be favourites, haven't we, to win it?
Yeah, not a chance. I'm putting us as favourites to win that. Yeah, it's a. Well, I mean, you're probably going to ask me about what team I'd go with, but I don't know. It's for me, it's a massive thing. So, like, I'm going to ask you a question, reverse it. I'm going to reverse the roles here, and I'm going to act as host. What would you rather have? Top 4, or win the FA Cup? And win the FA Cup and no Europe.
Right. Okay. Because. Yeah. See, I'd rather have top 4. I mean, if you asked me if Forest were obviously like 9th, 10th, and we were just going to have a mid-table finish, then I'd be saying, let's just go out and win the FA Cup, and how brilliant that would be. But I think where we are now, I would rather focus on getting top 4 in Champions League football. However, it'd be nice to do both, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, but no one says that we can't do both. We can't have. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But if we're looking at lineups for the next game, I'm thinking if Nuno's priorities are let's go and win something, then that starting 11 should basically be the one that started against Arsenal for Ipswich. I personally, if I was him, I would make some changes. Not the full 11, but I would. So
you wouldn't go for like an Exeter style lineup. You'd go for a bit
hybrid.
Of a first, almost a bit of a mix.
Yeah, I'd have the core of the team in there with a few changes. I'd have maybe rest one of the wingers and have Sousa on. I'd maybe give Taiwo a start because I thought when he came on actually against Arsenal, we haven't spoke about that, but I thought he actually was really, really good. The hold-up play was fantastic.
I agree.
And I think in hindsight, if Nuno had seen those 5 minutes or 10 minutes of Taiwo playing, I think he'd have probably brought him on sooner because while we were playing those long balls to Chris Wood, and while he was challenging for them, he's got two of the best centre halves in the league that are just dominant in the air. And Taiwo came on and pinned two of them within 5 minutes and held the ball up and laid it off and brought us into the game. So I think if Nuno had maybe seen that or had the hindsight to go back and do that, I think we would have probably seen Taiwo a bit earlier in the game yesterday, because he did really well. So I think I'd start Taiwo and one of the wingers, and then make a change with maybe one of the midfielders and maybe one of the defenders as well. But generally keep the call. Maybe like rest Murillo and bring in Murato. That sort of change. I'm thinking like bring in players that are there and thereabouts the first team, but rest some of the key players.
Yeah, because it's a big chance when you think about it. If Forest get the luck of the draw as well in the quarter final, and of course we always know an upset of banana skins on the cards in the FA Cup in any cup competition, but because it's one game, but you could get the luck of the draw and then we're all off to Wembley again. So I think it's an exciting prospect for the club, and I think Nuno will be considering it, and certainly the hierarchy at Forest will be thinking, actually, kind of where do we go from? Where do we go from here, and can we actually look at mounting a bit of an FA Cup push, and you never know, get yourselves in the final, and it's one game. Here's me getting ahead of myself, but it would be nice, wouldn't it? It would be nice to have a trip to Wembley and then finish in Europe. Give us a prediction, Sam.
For Monday, I think we'll win the game. I don't think it'll be close. I think Ipswich will be well up for it. They're a difficult one because they've obviously not picked up a lot of points, but they've been in games and they've been competing against a lot of teams. And I mean, the Man United one last night, was it last night? Yeah, wasn't it? So they were fully in that all the way to the end, and ran them close. I know they're also performing below, but they've got dangerous players. So I can imagine it. I can see it go into extra time or something like that again, and it being a close call. I'll go 2-1 Forest in extra time. It's a difficult one. It really is. Like, just going back to the kind of the point on like the FA Cup and the Champions League. I'm just thinking about, obviously you go into every game trying to win everything. I'm sure they do. Like, whoever's on the pitch is going on there to whatever team's picked. He's going there to win the game. But if you're going to prioritise one, is there much monetary kind of gain from winning the FA Cup compared to? Because I know the Champions League qualifying itself is massive in terms of income, but what do you know? Like, if the FA Cup has anything like that as well?
Yeah, so I do think you obviously get some kind of pride, but I think one of the biggest things is with the Champions League is you've got to think about that Forest to be playing. I mean, how many games would it be in the? It's changed now the format.
It's eight in the groups.
Yeah, so you'd be playing. Would you be playing? It's 4 at home, 4 away, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So you think about that in terms of at home, the level of sponsorship where Forest commercially can put. Kind of if you want to sponsor that game and be a headline sponsor, then they can probably charge you double than a normal Premier League game. So in terms of financially, it would benefit the club in the longer run to be in the Champions League. It's always whether they actually value silverware more, and if then you get to the quarter final and it's against a Crystal Palace, and then on the other side of the draw you could face I don't know who's left in.
City is still in.
Yeah, I mean, and then you never know. So I think in a sense of the club must look at it in a way of. But then as you said, Sam, whichever team goes out will want to get 3 points. We'll want to get a win. Yeah,
it's if you risk those sort of players and there is an injury or anything like that happens, then it's like, oh well, that was an avoidable incident, really. But you can't plan for those sort of things. But yeah, I don't know. I just in my head, if looking at that debate, I think getting us into the Champions League next season would mean for even further progress. I think you've then got a building block to invite players from the upper echelons that we wouldn't have been able to target before, that are like, all of a sudden it's like, wow, Marinakis can come and play for Forest. We're in the Champions League. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to be challenging for the league in the next few years. Come to Forest. We've got this going now. Whereas if you win an FA Cup, yeah, it's great. The history around it's fantastic, but it doesn't set you up for that progress into the following seasons, if that makes sense. And it doesn't. It's not an attraction for other players to come over, if that makes sense. But it's fine because we're going to win both, so it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Easier said than done. Talk about optimism on a Thursday, and I don't know. I mean, many other viewers can maybe relate that I just think night games knacker you out. Like, I've had about 6 coffees today trying to stay awake. I've been working from home as well, and I'm honestly struggling. Night game. I mean, it's just a long way, isn't it? Like the drive in, and I saw some guy on Twitter, and he does it every week, and I must try and get him on the podcast at time. I think his name's Lewis. I can't remember his exact handle on Twitter, but he travels from Cornwall for every. Or no, it might not be Cornwall. It might be somewhere like. It could be somewhere in Scotland, but it's a good long trip. I mean, maybe he stays over on night games or he goes direct back. But for like a 3 o'clock Saturday kickoff, he'll be up at. He'll leave the house at 6-7 in the morning. So,
wow.
Forest fans do put some miles in. So fair play to us all. Some big games coming up. Ipswich in the FA Cup Monday night, and then of course a small matter of Manchester City next week. Sam, appreciate it as always, mate. Thanks for tuning in. If you have done, listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and watching us on Facebook, Nottingham Forest News, and YouTube, Garibaldi Red. We shall be back next week with a post-match reaction to Ipswich. Then it will be Mark and Dave, hopefully with you, to preview City. I'm off on holiday, so don't shoot me for going on holiday during the season. I'm off to get some sunshine, so I'll do a post match from Ipswich, and then after that
you could have at least timed it with the international break.
I know. Those all-inclusive deals don't come cheap, Sam, all the time, mate. We've got to get them while they're good, eh? I'm off on holiday, so they'll be covering. I can remember Mark and Max did it last time when I was in Turkey in the summer, and they just decided to rip me to shreds. I sent them a video, and I think because I just hadn't shaved in about a week or something, and they completely ripped my beard in quotation marks to shape. Max was like, "Max, have you been drawing it on?" So I'm never letting them two do it again while I'm off. But anyway, we'll be back next week with 2 episodes, so don't worry. Sorry it's been a bit disjointed this week. It always is when there's been a bit of a midweek game, but appreciate the support as always. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Sam, thanks as ever, mate. And we will see you very soon. Give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And Forest could get to the quarter-final of the FA Cup after a win, hopefully on Monday night. We'll see you then. Come on, you Reds.